Alright, so in this video, I'm going to talk about how I thought 3 different men was my husband from God. So get your snacks, put your AirPods in. I'm going to try to condense everything in this video, okay? So God told me to just tell my experience, how I got it wrong 3 times, thinking that 3 different people was from God, and it never was God. Just to give you a little backstory, I've always knew God. I grew up in a church, but I knew nothing about submitting to God, and I did not know anything about obedience. I didn't know that God had a will or anything like that, okay? I've always was under the impression that if you believe, then it'll be done for you. All right. So the first guy was a guy that I met after I got out of a high school relationship. So I met him when I was in college. And with this relationship, it was basically a friends with benefit relationship. That's all we did. All right. It was only friends with benefits. And during this time in my life, God began to really convict me on the lifestyle that I was living. And I was in college and I began to get my life together with God, okay? Now, I want you to understand that marriage has always been a desire for me. God has always put the desire to be married in my heart because that is his will for my life. I just struggled with the person, okay? So this particular situation is really what really opened my eyes, okay? This particular person, when I started getting my life together with God, I fell in love with this person, all right? Even though we were friends with benefits, he was very attractive. He was a football player. He had tattoos. Everything in the physical aligned. But the way that he treated me did not, okay? Like when it came to a relationship type thing, all right? So it was always strictly friends with benefits, and I would buy him things and everything like that, but it would never go into like a relationship, and he always treated me bad, and he always dealt with other women. So during this time, I'm believing that, oh, if I pray for him, if I fast, if I do all of these things, God will do it. I remember one time where I was praying about the situation and I heard the Lord tell me, Raven, no. But I was still set on my own desire. So when I did not pay attention to God's no, that is when the enemy stepped in and I began to stand for this relationship out of my own free will and my own desire. I remember one time we had a crazy argument because I found out that he was actually in a physical relationship while dealing with me again, okay? And this was not the first girl, all right? And I remember praying and asking God to restore this relationship. Long story short, he came back. And when he came back, it was as if he wanted to be in a relationship with me, but there was never an agreement. Okay, he was talking to me, but I would always still have dreams about him and other women. During this time, like I kind of did fall back in sin with him, and I was a lot stronger in God, but I wasn't fully submitted, and I still wasn't operating under obedience. And I thought because he came back, God answered me. Okay, that's why I thought it was God, because I prayed and he came back, but he came back to destroy me. And during all of this, when he came back, I found out he was in another relationship with another woman. All right. So before, when we separated, it was a different girl. When he came back, he was in a relationship with another woman. And this is when my crazy side came out and I went crazy. And long story short, we separated again and he married the girl. after everything I did for him. He married the girl, and I cried to God, and God told me, Raven, I told you no in the very beginning. So that was my experience with the first guy. The second guy, after that situation, this like years had went past, right? Years had went past, and I still wanted to be married. I still wanted to be married, all right? And I moved back into my town, and there was this guy who was in the church, all right? He was not a pastor, but he would host like little Bible studies and stuff like that or whatever, and he chased me down, okay? He chased me down, all right? And because he was in a church and I was like a church goer, I'm thinking he would always talk about a wife and he would always talk about marriage. With him chasing me down, I gave him a chance. And with that relationship, again, there was no agreement and we fell into sin, okay? And lo and behold, I did the exact same thing that I did when it came to this relationship. I prayed, I fasted, I asked God to fix it. Both of those connections that I just talked about, I got signs. Yes, I got signs. I got signs that I thought was God confirming this was my man, all right? But indeed, those signs were false. In this relationship, I had to deal with other women as well, and we went to the same church. So I prayed, and sometimes it seemed as if God was answering and making things better. But from the very beginning, the entire connection was pure chaos. There was never any peace between me and this person. Long story short, we get into a great argument, and my anger went crazy. We separated, and guess what? He married the other woman. Okay? And again, this is where I realize I'm learning, okay, God, I'm probably doing something wrong. And I'm going to tell you what I was always doing wrong, okay? Moved on from that. I've been by myself for months now. I go to a different church because me and him was at the same church, all right? There was a pastor, okay, at this new church. I've always thought that if the man was in the church, like it's God, like if they're in church and they're doing the church thing, it gotta be God, right? He approached me, okay? He approached me in full deception. Long story short, there was never an agreement. He took me out, but there was just so much resistance when it came to him being with me. Like, we were cool and we would talk, but he was dealing with someone else. In fact, sleeping with this woman who was way older than me and him, okay? And when I would question him about it, he lied about the entire situation. Long story short, I found out about that. But what is so funny is this last relationship that I was in, my husband now was trying to talk to me while I was talking to the pastor. Yes, my husband now, he was approaching me, asking me to take me out, and I will never forget, I always left him on red because I've always wanted to be with this pastor, okay? And the pastor would, when I say that I was in such demonic torment and I would pray and I got signs of confirmation that this was God, but I never had peace. I was always in some sort of mental battle with this man, okay? I never had peace with him at all, but I got confirmation. So I always thought in my mind that God was going to fix it, all right? I really did believe that God was going to fix it. And I went through such a process that I had to go through deliverance because whatever spirit he had, It literally did not want to leave me. This spirit made me believe that this was my husband from God and that I needed to keep standing and fighting. But I stayed and I was tormented the entire time.